Hey everyone, I'm Kai Uchimura, the host of the Soccerpedia podcast. For today's episode, I will be interviewing David Ward. I've known David for a very long time. Me and his kids went to the same middle school and high school. I've played club soccer with his son, and he's a really good guy. He's a referee. He's refereed at various different levels for a very long time. And this is the first ever referee that I will have on the show. And without further ado, here's the show. Hey, Dave. Hold on. Can you see? It's still, I can't hear you. Oh, now I can. Good. Now I can hear you.
There we go.
Cool.
Ball, that's all.
Yeah. How's your week going?
So far, so good. You know, it's
Good.
Friday.
Yes. So it's been a few weeks since I've done a recent episode, and you're the first ever referee that I'll have on the podcast. So I just wanted to ask you and for you to explain to everyone, how did you get started with refereeing?
Well, as you know, you and my son Jeremy played together. You started at 9 years old and you 10, and there was always a shortage of referees. And I said, well, it can't be that difficult. And I started asking questions, and the next thing I found out was I had to take a class and be trained and get certified, and I did that. And then from there, I was asked to join high school, and then I just progressed a little bit through the ranks because I started so late in life. You know, you can only progress so far.
Mm-hmm.
The game gets faster and faster every year. The kids stay the same age, and I get a year older. So it's you know how quick the game has gotten.
Yes. So you have refereed at various levels, whether it's rec, soccer, academy, select, high school, and even at the collegiate level, correct?
Correct.
And so, and even, have you ever refereed like a professional match as well? Or is that a different?
You're getting into a different breed there. I was fortunate enough 4 years ago now, to be an AR2 on an NPSL match at RISA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will tell you that I was on the brink of 50 years of age. I didn't blink for 90 minutes. The game is fast.
Yes.
But I did it. You know, I walked off the field knowing that I did nothing that was detrimental to the outcome of the match. And that's the key as a referee. You know, most referees, you want to get it right. Let the players decide the match. And I feel that I was able to walk off the field on that match, and I did nothing detrimental to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 years ago, I was nominated and honored to do a high school semifinal and final in the state of Georgia. I still, years later, brag about it like a little kid. I mean, that's just a great honor for somebody that started as late in life as I did, refereeing the game.
Mm-hmm. What, so has that been, let's say, in your opinion, the most high-profile match that you have refereed?
I would probably say, you know, that as far as me personally, achievement-wise, being nominated to do the semifinals and finals of high school was. I can also tell you it was a pleasure doing that NPSL match and being an AR2 on that match. And the other thing, I was fortunate enough the last couple of years, even though I was only a fourth official, was to do some WPSL matches. And to do a game at up there in Chattanooga at Finley Stadium, you know, the atmosphere and everything, that was a treat too. So far and away, far and above anything that I ever expected. Like I said, I got involved to help out. There was a shortage of referees.
Yeah.
So if I want to be at the complex, I might as well help out. And then, you know, to meet some great people and people pushing and encouraging me that, you know, I had a knack for it.
Mm-hmm.
I was just able to do it. And
Yeah. What, of course, like when it comes to various sporting events, like people always focus in on players, coaches, of course, from fans' perspective, but oftentimes the referee's perspective is not really as noted or really dived in as deep. And so, question to you is, from a what's your take from a, let's say, referee's point of view, whenever you're refereeing a game? Like, what do you want the average, the casual fan or players and coaches to know what it's like?
I mean, we're taught that pretty much we're invisible. It's not our game. Okay, it's the players' game. Let the players determine the outcome of the game. You know, we're there, number one, for the safety of the players. Number two, to make sure the players enjoy the match. And then you get the entertainment value. They call it the C method, SEE. And that's what they work with us on. Even doing high school, when it comes playoff time in high school, you'll notice during the regular season, you get some referees, because you're coaching high school now, that, you know, we grab our stuff and we get out of there. It becomes the responsibility of the coaches and the school administrators. We are done. They want us to be invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, we're there, you know, as far as the game goes, is to apply the laws of the game and apply them fairly to keep the players safe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our job is. Nothing more, nothing less. We're not there to be recognized. If they could find a way to do it invisible, then that would be the way that officiating would go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's you got to stay unbiased. It doesn't matter. You know, and that's very difficult to do sometimes, because you get to know a lot of people. You and I
Yes,
have known one another for 15 years now. You're coaching a high school that I could get assigned to one of your games.
that is true.
You know, so it would be in my best interest if it was a region match and it was a high-level match, that maybe I should excuse myself from that match because of the personal relationship we have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's difficult to do sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if there's there's only, I don't know how many referees there are at the youth level across Georgia, but of course at some point there may be, if coaches and referees and players themselves have been in the game and been in the area for a long time. Yeah, I agree. You'll recognize them and be familiar with their personality and their style of play and coaching. So yeah,
I kind of convey it to people, Kai, this way. When I come walking onto the pitch with my crew, and I know the two coaches and I've known them and everything else, and they give a little smile and everything, then I know, okay, they know Dave's here. They're going to get it. The game, they're not never going to agree with every call I make, but they at least know I'm fair. But
yes.
I know referees that I watch walk onto the field, and you see one of the coaches' shoulders start to slump. You know what kind of contest you're faced with right off the bat.
Mm.
So that's what you want to do. You want to be able to walk onto that field in a professional manager and greet both coaches. Don't disturb them, but greet both coaches and have them feel comfortable that you're there and you're going to officiate the match. At the end of the match, all I want them to do is say that I called a fair game. Doesn't have to be a good game. Wasn't a great game, Rep. Everything was fair, and they're happy.
Mm.
And then you know you've done your job.
And when you mentioned earlier that you, of course, started refereeing at a later age than most do, if you were 20, 30 years younger, could you would you want to ever reach to, let's say, the Mark Geigers or the Rockwells of the world to referee in MLS or even at the international stage?
Oh, absolutely. The only deterrent for me doing that was my age. And I progressed to what they called at the time a grade 7. The next step was a state referee. A lot of people asked me to do it and pursue it. But at age 50, what am I going to get being a state referee?
Mm.
Okay? I'd done an NPSL match, and a signer had trusted me enough that was doing NPSL. I did some NPSL regular season matches as fourth official.
Mm.
So those are the level games you need as a state referee, and you got to find those games because you got to be assessed, and there's certain protocol that you have to follow.
Mm.
So, and I got a career. If you're 20 to 25, then yeah, I would suggest if you have a passion for it like I did, that you pursue it and go as far as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to get yourself noticed. You got to travel. You got to go to out of state tournaments. You got to go to regionals.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, get invited to nationals at some point, and then you get recognized on that level, and then the opportunities are endless.
Mm.
And
What's been the most interesting or weirdest match that you've ever had to referee, whether you've been the main referee or AR or the fourth official?
I was the AR2 2 years ago, and it was the eventual state champions were from up in Rome, and they were playing at North Oconee.
Mm.
And I was the AR2, and the outcome of the match, it was a quarterfinal high school playoff game. The final score of the match was 8-7.
Was it a boys or girls game?
It was a boys' game.
Okay. Okay.
At halftime, the score was 2-1, North Oconee. The second half, they came out and it was bing, 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 back and forth. And with 39 seconds left in the game, North Oconee scored to make it seven. They went up a goal. And we ended up going all the way to kicks in that game because with 39 seconds left at the kickoff, the visiting team brought their goalkeeper out. He was up at the half line on the coach's sideline, and he got fouled.
Mm.
And there was 12 minutes left in the match, and the keeper could kick the ball the length of the field. So they come in my direction. So you got 22 players on the field, and 21 of the 22 are in the 18-yard area of the attacking goal. And the keeper takes a kick, and it bounces around the 6 and goes and takes a weird bounce and goes to the far post and in as time expired to tie the match up at 7-7 and take it to overtime. It was the weirdest thing you would have never thought.
Mm.
That a match that was 2-1 at halftime would end up 8-7.
That's a lot. That's a lot of goals. That's like a goal every 5 minutes in the second half. That's yeah. What about as far as let's say physical or any type of confrontation? Have you ever what's the most amount of red cards you've had to give out or witnessed?
Well, I've always had a belief that you don't manage a match with cards. Okay? You got to be engaged with the players. The players will tell you what they want, what they expect. Most good referees will tell you in the pregame if you're working the line for them, or if I was in the middle, I would tell you, let me call the game the first 5 to 10 minutes. You get a temperament of the teams and how the players want to play the game. Because that's what you got to remember as a referee. It's not my game. It's your game as a player.
Mm-hmm.
How do you want to play it? The weirdest red cards that I ever had was Heritage High School, and the away team got fouled at the half line, and then there was a scrum at the top of the 18, and my partner was only a two-man system. He was coming to give a red card to the player that from the previous it was the second yellow, and at the same time, one of his teammates decided he was going to get up and stomp on the home team's leg, and the home team player jumped up and yelled, "What the F?" So the whole place so it was like 3 red cards in one play.
Mm.
So that was the weirdest scenario of red cards. I always tried to manage the game the way the players want to play within the guidelines of not hurting one another.
Mm-hmm.
I was never a big fan of red cards.
Mm.
Yellow card, you got to look at a yellow card when you're giving it. Are you getting bang for your buck? Is the game starting to get out of control? Do you need to tighten up? And if you a yellow card as a player, are you going to connect and say, okay, I'm playing bad, I'm playing wrong, I'm endangering the safety of my opponent? If you're going to get that bang for your buck, sometimes it's just a stern talking to. And you see it all the time in the Premier League or at the higher levels, the referee calls the player over, and then they'll call the captain over too and tell the captain, you need to talk to him. Because it's a tool that we have, but you don't manage a game with that tool. You manage the team by, as a referee, being engaged, being involved. You be with those players, talk to them. You'll tell me what's going on. So
of course, with the virus, there hasn't been many the high school season got cut short. Do you still plan on refereeing, or are you retired? What's your take right now?
Well, I didn't recertify for USSF in 2020. Part of it was, is it time and our is it time for me, because you get to the point where you're doing ECNL and the higher level games, and I've tried to go back and give back and do the younger games. I will never officiate a game the way the parents and coaches want me to, because it's not about them either. It's
Mm-hmm.
about the players. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a difficult transition. I did have 12 or 13 high school games on my schedule, but as college games on my schedule. But as you know, the college season, a lot of them have been moved to the spring now.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen whether I recertify. Um, I was doing predominantly higher level games and adult amateur games on the
Mm.
USF side. My wife still likes me, Kai. I'd rather be at home on the weekends with her
Yeah.
than around chasing soccer games.
Mm.
And you just
Yeah.
get to that point,
Yeah.
you know. I did more with refereeing than I ever thought I would. I got a lot of people to thank for that took me under their wing.
Mm.
And that's the key. If you're young, you need to hang out with the right people,
Yeah.
and and those connections will help you.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to take the games, and you got to be. If you're assigned a game, you're only as good as a handshake. You take the games.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody offers you a higher level game, a better paying game, you already committed. Honor
Mm-hmm.
your word, be available, and do the right things, and you will
Mm.
get recognized. And I was
So
fortunate for that.
yeah. So what referee, whether they're MLS or even at Premier League or anybody, who's the referee that you look up to that you think consistently does a pretty good job and you see as a pretty decent referee role model of how all referees should at least kind of gravitate towards?
So, I mean, for me, on a local level, it was Kevin Fowler, who was at RISA. Um, he had been a state referee, but he took me under his wing
Mm.
with the basics and gave me more of a passion for the game and more of a passion for refereeing. If I had to pick a professional referee, I would go with Howard Webb. I
Mm.
mean, I think he was just the epitome with what
Mm.
he had to endure in his World Cup final.
Mm-hmm.
And the audacity, a game that was filled with that many yellow cards, to let that play just play on, uh, it's incredible. And
Mm.
it's a benefit to him and his character, and shows you how engaged he was as a referee
Mm.
to have that outcome come that way with that kind of a call and allow it to play through. It was just, that's the epitome.
Mm.
He's one of the best. And I can't help but like Mark Geiger
Mm.
because he's an American,
Yeah.
and he's really one of the first ones to get international recognition.
Mm. I
He's an
think
incredible guy.
Yeah, I think it was it the 2014 World Cup where he got pretty high remarks on a lot of his group stage play, and I saw some news articles on that. And then, of course, Sam Rockwell, Georgia native referee, was at the World Cup in Russia a couple of years ago. So it's really interesting and fascinating how even at the local level somebody can be at a referee at a very high stakes, very well noted tournament. Yeah.
Rice has got several now, that are pro. I mean, Corey Rockwell, he's FIFA, but
Yeah.
he referees for pro as an
Yeah.
AR. He's been to the World Cup a couple times with Jair Marufo, because
Mm.
they end up as a team of three, and when they get to that level in that situation. This year you got Guido Gonzalez as an MLS. He's been down there in Orlando in the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Arangas from Georgia, he's an AR.
Mm.
And you got several other younger ones coming up that are doing USL right now, which
Mm.
is the next step. They're considered pro, but they're like pro light,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like the players have to progress at the different levels the referees do. And we
Mm.
got 3 or 4 at that level, and about a half a dozen that have achieved national referee status,
Mm.
whether it be as an AR or as a referee. So you'll see them on some of the USL games, and hopefully in the future we'll see them in pro. and
Mm,
carrying that FIFA badge as well.
mm.
So
How what's the age cutoff for a professional referee? Like before it's like okay, mandatory retirement, or is that even a thing?
I don't know if pro has that in effect now. FIFA used to have it. I believe it was age 42 was
Mm,
mandatory retirement. They changed it a couple years ago, and I want to say I'd have to Google it and look it up now because you got Martin Atkinson over in the Premier League,
mm,
who was a FIFA referee up until last year or this year, but he was 45 years old.
mm,
FIFA extended it, but you had to do a different type of fitness test and
mm,
medical exams
mm,
that your body could take the toll of games at the FIFA level.
mm.
So,
Yeah, I've heard and like about all the fitness tests the referees have to do, and it's quite a lot to just be a referee. It's yeah.
yeah, I mean, we got to be in shape too, and we got to go for 90 minutes plus.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then there's certain cases where we may run more than you do. I
Mm,
can tell you as an AR, everybody said you're better off in the center because you don't run as much because he's pretty much trying to keep track of play, where I'm
mm-hmm.
trying to keep up with play. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody, you're an AR. Every team now wants to push up, get out, get out, get out. They start screaming. Well, you got to stay with that second last defender. So if he's running from the 6 yard area to the half line, guess what you're doing? The
Mm-hmm.
same thing. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden the play's coming back at you. So
Mm-hmm.
it can be tedious. And
How?
I used to complain that I had to take 3 fitness tests a year, one for USSF, one for college, and one for high school. They were mandatory. But then I was fortunate enough when Corey Rockwell came back from Russia, he did our clinic
Mm,
for college here in Georgia. And it was August, and he had already had to take 9 fitness tests.
mm,
So when you get to that level,
yeah.
it's a diet, it's a regimen, it's a lifestyle. It really is.
Mm. So, of course, at the high school level, there are some games where there are either 3 referees or there's 2 referees. What's what's the like? How do you feel about the different dynamics between refereeing with 2 center referees compared to just 1 center referee and two linesmen?
More eyes on the field is always better.
Mm,
I prefer a 3-man crew or even a 4-man crew like they do in the high school playoffs. It's just
mm,
more eyes. We're all referees,
mm,
no matter what. The 2-man, and some of the stadiums in high school, the lighting isn't always as good.
yeah.
So there's dark areas on the field. And why
Mm,
is it that's always where the incident occurs?
yeah.
You only got 2 guys.
Mm,
And, it's a transition. It can be a good system. It's due to a shortage of qualified referees at the high school level. And with
mm,
all the high schools that play the game, naturally the games are going to be covered. So that's why you have the 2-man system. It can
mm,
be frustrating at times, especially you get into some of the bigger areas where you got the 6A and 7A schools. Those young men and young ladies know how to play the game.
mm,
And when it's just 2 of you, you're keeping track of offsides, but you got to help your partner in his half of the field, and you can get caught, and it can be difficult.
mm,
Now, in a JV game, it's a little bit different. You're all right with a couple.
mm,
You can get by.
mm.
But the 2-man system, I know how to do it. I know how to run the duel, and I can do a pretty good job at it. The flip side is if you get a partner that's not as intense and engaged in the game, then it's almost like there's one referee out there, and that can be very frustrating.
Yeah. Mm,
So I would I would I would love to see enough qualified referees that all high school games are played with a 3-man crew during the regular season. And you're seeing it more and more. I know the assigner tries on region matches now to assign 3-man crews.
mm,
The savings to the coach and the athletic program is minimal
mm.
when you do it that way, but the game's better off for it.
Yeah.
You just, that extra set of eyes, you can see so much more, whether it's behind the play or ahead of the play, and then the center referee himself.
Do you so when you say that there's a referee shortage, like how bad is it?
The last numbers that I had heard, Georgia consistently on the USSF level has about 4,500 referees. And they lose anywhere from 42 to 50% of the referees every year, whether it be to retirement or first-year referees. They just don't want to hear it from the parents and coaches, and they decide not to carry on anymore. So that means 42 to 50% of your referees, USSF-wise, every year are brand new. So how do you get to a field of mature referees? And that's a real-world international problem.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer. I've tried coaching the referees. I was always at the club when I was an assigner. Working with the younger referees. You got to have thick skin.
Yeah.
You got to have thick skin. And most of the time when I'm refereeing, I don't hear what the parents and coaches have to say. I can tune myself out. I know I've been doing too many games when I do start hearing the parents and coaches. Then I know I got to take a week off and regroup. And it's tough to do because there's so many games available.
Yeah.
The clubs and the players have grown exponentially, and the referee tool has not.
What advice would you have for anybody who's interested in becoming a referee, and what's a message you would like to say to parents and coaches that often are the most vocal at games?
Well, yeah, it's perseverance as a person, as a referee. It's all about your personality. If you have thick skin or do you have thin skin? Are you going to let that stuff bother you? Everybody's different. Everybody's personality is different. Half of the people in the world have thick skin, the other half don't. So that makes it very difficult. But if it's something you enjoy and it's something you love and have a passion for, and the game itself you have a passion for, then you'll be fine. Just do your job. Do your job. It is a job. You are getting paid. We don't get paid great money. I couldn't retire on my referee money. Okay? It's a nice bonus of doing something that I enjoy doing. Make sure you enjoy it and you're doing it for the players. That would be the biggest thing, advice. As far as the parents go, how would you feel if I yelled at your child who made a bad pass the way you just yelled at my 16-year-old son who you think made a bad call? They wouldn't like it very much.
That is true.
As far as coaches go, I was given very sage advice by one of your old coaches, Dusty Fowler, who told me, I'm never going to agree with you all the time, Dave. All I want is for you to hear me. So any young referee that has coaches that are screaming at him, if you turn around and you look at that coach and you give him a thumbs up and say, I heard you, coach, and then continue reffing the game, he's going to go sit down on the bench because that's all he wants is to be heard. And if you acknowledge him, 95% of the coaches will just, okay, the ref understands, he heard me, I'm cool. And he goes and sits down. It's no different. And it was explained to me one time that if you came up to me with a problem and I turned around and walked away from you, or I had a problem with one of your players and I came to you and said, Coach, number 12 is an issue. You can deal with it or I can deal with it. You turned around and blew me off and walked away. How would I feel as the referee? You don't care what I have to say. So when you get up and you disagree with my call and you say something, if I don't acknowledge you, then you're just going to get louder and louder. And it doesn't have to get to that point. Acknowledge the coach. I'm not going to debate with you. I made the call. I blew the whistle. That's one of the greatest things I've figured out about being a referee. You can't unblow a whistle.
That is true.
Okay? But you can't let your pride get in the way. If you make a bum call and you look at the players and point to your chest and say, my bad, everybody's going to calm down and go back to playing and laugh and joke about it. Don't make that mistake again in the game. But, just be humble. I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. I'll make half the people happy half the time. But I will never make all the people happy all the time.
Yep. And I think that's going to be that's pretty much a life message in general that, no matter what career you have or what you do, there's always going to be somebody that's not going to ever be pleased with what you do 100% of the time, which is, And that's a valuable life lesson.
As a coach, you're watching your 11 players, and the other coach is watching his 11 players. I got to watch 22. So I got double the amount of players, and all you care about is your players, and all your opposing coach cares about is his players.
Mm.
And then when it comes to the spectators, what do they care about? Their child and their child alone, and a few of the players on their child's team. And I got to care about everybody and take care of everybody on the field. It's a completely different perspective. It's enforce the laws of the game, good, bad, or indifferent. And you're not always going to be right, but you want to get it right. So, and as a referee, if you can walk off the field, like I said, for that NPSL match that I was just so happy to do. I walked off the field and I did nothing detrimental to the outcome of that match. The players decided that match, and that's how I want to walk off the field on any game that I officiated.
Yeah, it's that's always, like you said, referees are meant to just be there to just make sure that the game's going smoothly and staying invisible. And I always, whenever I watch games either on TV or an actual game, if the ball ever like hits the referee, I always feel very bad. It's just what's the referee supposed to do in that situation? How are they going to react from 2 yards away with a ball coming in at 50 miles an hour or even faster?
And there's all kinds of diagrams out there for the position where it's supposed to be and where the ball is. So the likelihood of getting hit is very minimal because you really shouldn't be that close to play. It does happen. A transition play can happen that quick, and they changed the rule last year. Now, if the ball hits the referee and it changes possession, you blow the whistle. It's an indirect kick for the team that kicked the ball. For years, we are part of the field. That's what. So if it hits the referee and goes in the goal, it was a valid goal because we are considered part of the field. So it's unique. We're trained very diligently, and the higher you progress, to be out of the way. And those guys at the higher levels, Sean Hurd, another FIFA AR, talked at our high school clinic a couple times. He was one of Mark Geiger's ARs when they went to the World Cup. And he talked about they get it right. And on days off, when they're at a World Cup or at a tournament, they may not be doing the matches that day, but they're studying film on the 2 teams that their next match is. So they can get a feel. It helps us, just like players study film, referees at that level study film too. So it helps them with their positioning. Because if one team plays long ball over the top and the other team builds up in the back, you as a referee got to make sure you're in the position for each team's tactics to be where the incident could potentially occur.
So if you could add or change one rule in soccer, no matter how big or how small, what would you change? Or do you think the rules as it is are perfect as you see fit?
Universal rules. Universal rules. It's if you go over into Europe and other countries, it's the academy programs and players come up through the academy. In this country, we've got too many hands in the pie. College has their set of rules. High school has their set of rules. USSF has their set of rules. And it's for varying and different reasons. And I understand that. High school, as a high school coach now, it's all about participation and sportsmanship. You could pull your JV team out of the stands at halftime and get the roster back from the referee and add those names and play your JV team. Where most other forms you can't. Your roster set before the match, and that's your 18 and go with it. But one instrumental body of rules. Internationally it's IFAB and FIFA, but everybody has different interpretations in this country on the different levels of play and the different groups. I think we need one universal body to control the whole thing like European nations do. It would simplify it. Because not only do I have to take a physical fitness test, I have to take a written test for all 3 bodies that I officiate for.
Yeah.
And, substitution rules are different at several different levels just in the college game. Your colleges play unlimited subs. All the other ones they're allowed so many subs per half and 1 re-entry in the second half. That's even more you got to keep up with.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with like, especially with college substitutions. It seems like they can make unlimited subs, but let's say if a player comes like gets substituted in the first half, they can't re-enter until the second half, and if they leave in the second half, they can't come back in the game at all. And of course, that's different in the youth and high school level where it's unlimited subs. You can sub out for a minute, come back on the next minute, and yeah, it's free flowing. But I see your point, and I agree too. There needs to be some sort of universal rules on, as it doesn't have to be substitutes, but as far as just they're just guidelines in general. I think one rule I saw, I was watching an EPL game where it was a goal kick, and the keeper passed the ball to their own teammate who was already inside their own goalie box. And I remember growing up, the ball had to leave the goal 18-yard box before somebody else touches it. And one of my high school players, she asked me that, hey, coach, are we allowed to do that at that level? And I had to look at the rule book, and Georgia high school still stated that in a goal kick, the ball has to leave the 18-yard box.
Yeah, high school and college usually are about a year behind IFAB and USSF, and it was because they started it. What was it? The Women's World Cup or the Men's World Cup, when they implemented that you could pass it to a teammate within the 18, didn't have to leave the 18. Now the opponent can't come in and get the ball.
That's true.
But then you go right from that to a high school or a college season where the NCAA or the National High School Federation hasn't passed that law yet, and most of your kids play club ball. So they're doing it, and your goalkeeper, he passes it to his teammate. I got to blow the whistle. It's got to come out of the area. Put pressure on the referee, and then it's undue pressure on me because now the coach and spectators, they changed the rule. Yes, USSF and international soccer changed the rule. High school and college haven't changed it yet. So that leads me into my more universal structure, where the rules are the rules.
Well, Dave, it's been really great talking to you. I appreciate that you had time to come on to the podcast and just give your viewpoints from a referee's perspective. I have a lot of respect for you as well as others that we know, and you're one of my favorite people, favorite referees whenever I see you out there. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, I appreciate very much inviting me. I've known you since you were a little fella. You grew up with my kids, so we have a special relationship, Kai. Keep up the good work and keep it up. You're doing a great job. It's fun to watch all you kids grow up and take different paths and different things, and your love for the game has been fantastic. And I look forward to listening to your podcast when you post and stuff.
Definitely, I will post to this episode as soon as possible, and I'll send it out to you. And hope you take care. Tell Jeremy and Kaylee I said hi.
I'll do that.
Cool.
Thank you again.
Cool. Take care. Have a good weekend, man.
You do the same. Talk soon.
Yep.